From the headquarters of the Guild of Champions, this is the Chris Terrell Podcast, and I am your host, Chris Terrell, and welcome to another week of your weight loss quest. How did this last week go for you, champion? What new challenges did you encounter? But more importantly, what failure did you go through? But what lesson did you get from that failure? Come on now, don't let a perfectly good failure go by without you getting your lesson. That's your reward for your troubles, by the way. Now, if you're new here, I've lost 125 pounds myself after an entire adulthood of chronic yo-yo dieting. Up, down again, before I finally got sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I made some permanent, meaningful, and actual changes to my real life, lifestyle, habits, routines, environment, community, and to my systems of belief, all of which make me, and all of them make up you. And if you want to get to the body and life of your dreams and keep it, you're going to have to make changes to those things. And now I'm here each week helping you get the same results in your life. Look, if you want to learn weight loss and weight management from somebody that's learned this in a book, somebody that's never really had a weight problem, never had to deal with the psychological and mental effects of having been overweight, then well, this isn't the podcast for you. Because here, you are going to learn the common sense stuff about weight loss from somebody that's actually been there. You are going to learn about the mindset shifts that need to occur. Because having walked this journey myself, I know how hard that part is. I know that you probably don't need another lesson in how to count calories. You probably don't need another lesson on what is the best kind of exercise. And quite honestly, there's plenty of content out there to get that. If you want that, you just go into YouTube and type in something into the search box and you're going to find it. That's how I learned it on my journey. And if you find that the basics there aren't good enough, go hire somebody. And if you don't have time to do that, go hire somebody. That's the beauty of hiring somebody. They can shorten your learning curve. But here, I want to really make the content that I wished existed when I was losing my weight. And the stuff that I really, truly wished that existed was stuff that is related to weight loss and mindset. Because I had been practicing a lot of those skill sets in another part of my life, my career, but I wasn't using them in my personal life. I was a workaholic. I worked constantly, and I was letting it rule my life. And I also was an overeater, and I was a video game addict, and I loved binging on Netflix and movies and TV shows. And I had to make a lot of changes to come back from that. I had to make a lot of changes because I had been sacrificing everything at the altar of my job. Everything. And I needed to take a lot of these skills and bring them to my personal life. And I didn't have a lot of content I could turn to that would help me. There are some other good podcasts out there, but there's not many. I talk about mindset and as it relates to weight loss. So before I jump into the topic of today, I would love to first invite you to come join my free Facebook group. You can find a link to that by going to christerrellcoaching.com, and you can find a link to it in the show notes of this podcast. Also, to those of you, my Spotify listeners, which, by the way, the metrics show is the majority of my listeners, if you look in your app right down there on that screen, you're going to see a spot where you can leave some feedback. It's a comment that goes directly to me, to the screen that I use when I upload podcasts. I see them right there. There's no means for me to respond to them. I have no way to respond to you currently. Maybe Spotify will add that. But I publish them and I read every single one of them. It's part of my morning routine is to check to see if anybody submitted anything from the previous night and to read over them. So if you got something of value out of the podcast, I would love to have you let me know in the comment down below. And I am going live on YouTube every Monday morning at about 9:15-ish, and you can find that by searching for Chris Terrell Coaching on YouTube, and you'll find that link there. And as I said, I go live every Monday, and if you subscribe and hit the notification bell, you will be notified when I go live. One of the things, let's go to the topic today, that I've been doing the last few weeks, and I've been enjoying it, and I've been getting quite a bit of positive feedback, so we're going to do more of it because I'm enjoying it, is digging into the sources of where I learned things and sharing it with you directly and giving the commentary on it as it relates to weight loss. And a book that we will probably find ourselves in a bunch is the book Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. This book right here was very, very helpful. What's interesting about this book is it was written by the Dr. Maxwell Maltz, who was a plastic surgeon. And he noticed that as people would go through visual changes to their body, hoping that it would lead to a lasting change within them, he noticed inconsistent results, that getting the additional changes to their body didn't always lead to the person feeling happy. even though they were sure that that would happen. And that sort of piqued his interest and set off this line of study that he got into. And for today, we are going to be digging into, at least in the version I have, on page 148, I believe is where we're going to pick in. Tell you what, no, we're going to pick up on 147, actually. So the chapter that we're in is the failure mechanism, how to make it work for you instead of against you. What I love about this chapter of the book is he is going on to help you see that failure is in fact something that works for you, not against you. And he really walks you through that paradigm so you can see it and decide if it's something you'd like to adopt. So let me read a section from this. Again, this is on page 147, and the subsection that we're on is called Practical Goals versus Perfectionistic Goals. So, to his friends, Jim S. was a successful man. He had risen from stock clerk to vice president of his company. His golf score was in the low 80s. He had a beautiful wife and 2 children who loved him. But, nevertheless, he felt chronically frustrated because none of these measured up to his unrealistic goals. He himself was not perfect in every particular, but he should be. He should be chairman of the board by now. He should be shooting in the low 70s at golf. He should be such a perfect husband and father that his wife would never find cause to disagree with him, and his children should never misbehave. Hitting the bullseye was not good enough. He had to hit the infinitesimal speck in the center of the bullseye. You should use the same technique in all your affairs that Jackie Burke recommends in putting "I told him." That is, not to feel that you have to pinpoint the ball right to the cup itself on a long putt, but to aim at an area the size of a washtub. This takes off the strain and relaxes you, enables you to perform better. If it's good enough for the professionals, it should be good enough for you. So let me explain what he's talking about here and how this relates to you in your weight loss journey. So have you ever found yourself, or maybe even heard others say something like, I should have lost 2 pounds this week. I should be further along by now. I should be feeling different in my mindset. I should be past this sugar craving at this point. I should be exercising. I should. If we're not careful, we'll go shoulding all over ourselves. And if you are being perfectionistic with this at the same time, you might find that you have to be absolutely perfect just to meet minimum expectations. It is really difficult to be satisfied when you do that. Well, imagine how if you do this with your weight loss journey. I have to track every single calorie, and I can only eat foods that I deem to be good, that are quote unquote on diet, and I have to hit every exercise, and I can't miss a single one, and I have to nail my step target, and I have to hit my sleep target, and I have to do this, and I have to do this, and I have to do this, and you just have all these lines that you have to stick to. And what ends up happening is you place so much pressure on yourself to be successful that it actually causes you to underperform and do less well. Let me give you a story that actually he talked about in here that I had happen in my own life. So he mentioned an example here with the golf ball. So let me tell you how I was taught this principle. Many years ago, I was being taught by somebody who was much better at golf than me how to play golf. And I was typically a 3 and 4 putter, as in it took me 3 or 4 putts to get the ball in the hole once I landed on the green. And the person that was working with me, after watching me for a while, he said, I want you to stop aiming for the pin, which is the hole on the green. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, how many putts does it usually take you to get in? And I was like, 3. He's like, it's 3 or 4. Like, oh, okay, if you say so. Because he'd been counting. And I wasn't. I was deceiving myself. I'm thinking I'm 2 and 3, and he's actually like, no, you're 3 and 4. Because what would happen is every so often, I would sink it in on that first putt or get it in a 2-putt, and I'd be like, yeah, and I'd ride that high for the rest of the day, telling myself I'm a 2-putter, when in reality, it's usually taking me 3 or 4 putts to get it in. So he looked at me and he said, I want you to stop aiming for the pin, because what's happening is you're putting so much pressure to get it in, you're overshooting it or you're undershooting it. So instead, what I want you to do is just try to get the ball to land within a few feet. I was like, really? He goes, how often do you miss when you're within a few feet? And I was like, well, not often. He's like, I'm telling you, if you just try to get near the hole, you will more regularly actually 2-putt. And let me tell you what happened. I stopped trying to get the ball into the hole on the first putt and just started trying to land within a couple of feet of it. And you know what started happening? Not only did I start regularly getting 2-putts, I also started occasionally getting more often 1-putts, because I was finessing it. I wasn't hitting it so dang hard, because I had a tendency to overshoot the hole. And so this was a huge lesson for me. Don't try to be perfect. Just try to get close enough. You'll find that sometimes close enough in personal development, especially with regards to like weight loss or when you have to do something that doesn't have a finish line, you got to do it forever. Close enough, many days will surprisingly get you results. Let's continue on with the book here. Same page. Subsection heading, his self-fulfilling prophecy made failure certain. So this is a little story in the book. It's about 2 paragraphs. So let's go on this little journey with Harry. Harry was somewhat different. He had won none of the external symbols of success. And yet, he had many opportunities, all of which he muffed. 3 times he had been on the verge of landing the job he wanted, and each time something happened. Something was always defeating him just when success seemed within his grasp. Twice he had been disappointed in love affairs. His self-image was that of an unworthy, incompetent, inferior person who had no right to succeed or to enjoy the better things in life. And unwittingly, he tried to be true to that role. He felt he was not the sort of person to be successful and always managed to do something to make this self-fulfilling prophecy come true. Here's how this relates to weight loss. This one's a really simple one. If you go around all the days long believing in your mind and repeating to yourself regularly in your thoughts or maybe even out loud with your mouth that you're going to gain the weight back. Every time I go, there's always something that comes and sabotages this. It's amazing how many times I see someone on a weight loss journey. They seem to be always battling a crisis. It's almost as if you identify with having a crisis, as if you must have a struggle to work through. The absence of a struggle actually makes you uncomfortable. Some of you, I don't know who you are, but some of you, if you look to your life and you'll see that you're always having a struggle, notice how you tend to feel when you don't have any struggles. Notice how you feel. You see, you inside of you carry a self-image of either a successful I can type person or a victim I can't. Now, it could be it's not like it's one extreme to the other. There's a whole bunch of middle ground, and you might be different things in different areas of life. For example, at work, you might feel very confident and thinking I'm a can-do person, but in romantic relationships, you might feel woefully inadequate and feel like an I can't do person. So as you can see, it could be 2 different things in 2 different parts of life. So in the part of life that you're trying to improve, you need to do a self-image check and see, is your self-image in alignment with where you'd like to go, or is your self-image in alignment with where you're leaving? Because if your self-image is in alignment with the life you're leaving behind, you're going to find yourself living the life you're leaving behind. You have to change yourself from the inside. Let's continue on to the part that I really wanted to get to. So, same page, frustration as a way of solving problems does not work. That's the name of the section heading. And this right here is the meat and potatoes of what I wanted to build to. There were 2 examples here of stories that are about to be referenced. And so we had, just to recap the stories, we had the story of Jim, who was successful and yet always felt not good enough. No matter what, it was never enough, never enough, never enough. Right? Always striving to be perfect. All right? Always feel like he should be doing this. He should be doing that. The bullseye was not enough. And then we had someone on the opposite end of the spectrum, Harry, who was a victim. Something's always going wrong. The victory is always being snatched just from his hands just at the 11th hour, right? Okay, so those are the 2 contrasting stories. Let's go back to the book. Expressing frustration, discontent, or dissatisfaction is a way of responding to problems that we all learned as infants. If an infant is hungry, he expresses discontent by crying. A warm, tender hand then appears magically out of nowhere and brings milk. If he is uncomfortable, he again expresses his dissatisfaction with the status quo, and the same warm hands appear magically again and solve his problem by making him comfortable. Many children continue to get their way and have their problems solved by overindulgent parents, by merely expressing their feelings of frustration. All they have to do is feel frustrated and dissatisfied, and the problem is solved. This way of life works for the infant and for some small children. It does not work, however, in adult life. Yet many of us continue to try it by feeling discontented and expressing our grievances against life, apparently in the hope that life itself will take pity upon us and rush in and solve our problems for us, if only we feel badly enough. Jim S. was unconsciously using this childish technique in hope that some magic would bring him the perfection that he craved. Harry had practiced feeling frustrated and defeated so much that feelings of defeat for him became habitual. He projected them into the future, and he even expected to fail. His habitual defeatist feelings helped create a picture of himself as a defeated person. Thoughts and feelings go together. Feelings are the soil that thoughts and ideas grow in. This is the reason that you have been advised throughout this book to imagine how you would feel if you succeeded, and then feel that way now. All right, this section right here is the whole thing I wanted to get to. So let's dissect this and talk about a few concept points here. We're gonna stay in this section for the rest of the podcast. He mentions here in the beginning of the section, and I read the whole thing uncut, so I know that was a lot to throw at you, but if an infant is hungry, he or she expresses discontent by crying. So if you consider this for a moment, what else is the infant going to do, right? That's how it works. We don't have words as an infant. All we have is raw feelings, wordless thinking. And so we express, all we are is an expression of emotion as a child. The thoughts, the conscious thoughts, the words, and more advanced concepts, those begin to show up later in the mind. And so what happens is, as a child, we become conditioned. Express the emotion and a need is fulfilled. If I express discontent, my needs magically get taken care of. Well, what happens if you have a parent that continues this behavior longer than maybe would have been helpful for the child? Maybe it would have been helpful to start letting the child learn how to process discontent in a different way. And look, I hear you. Right now, some of you thinking, well, Chris, this is so much harder. This is my child. I love my child dearly. I get it. I truly do. But this isn't about parenting, okay? This isn't a parenting book. This isn't meant to be passing judgment on you and how you're parenting. That has nothing to do with this. So if you're already getting in your head about that, please don't let that get in the way of the message here, because we're actually talking about weight loss here. We're talking about life change, not about parenting. But it's an important thing to make when we look at ourselves and to recognize, where did our habitual behaviors originate from? And you'll find that many of your habitual behaviors originate from early childhood. Not all of them, but many of them. And they can be changed, so it's not like they have to be that way. But some of those early ones can be pretty difficult to shake loose. Have you ever considered why some of you, it's so difficult to shake loose the belief that I shouldn't throw away food? Or I shouldn't leave food on a plate that tastes good? Having this weird, irrational fear about wasting good food? That could be an example of a habitual pattern that you might have picked up as a kid. But he goes on to say here, I want to get past that, but here we go. It does not work in adult life, yet many of us continue to try it by feeling discontented and expressing our grievances against life in the hope that life itself will take pity and solve our problems for us. I was this. I 100%, I didn't know I was this, but I would feel discontented. Or just as you said here, rush in and solve our problems. If only we feel badly enough. I would feel discontent, but you know what? No matter how discontented I feel, no one came. Which would only make me more sad and more annoyed that no one would come, and when I would look for easy answers, I wouldn't find them. And so my problems would continue to go unresolved because there were no easy answers, and the few that I thought were going to be easy answers, turns out it was snake oil, and it wasn't an easy answer. It was still going to be a hard answer, and it was still going to take a long time. And I'm letting myself feel even more frustrated. It was creating a very unhelpful cycle within me. And on my weight loss journey, I had to work through this. And let me jump to the end part of this section here for a moment. This is the reason you have been advised throughout this book to imagine how you would feel if you succeeded, and then feel that way now. So the beginning days of my what's next mentality, I didn't call it this in the beginning, I did this exercise because I learned to do this in business. Look to the end and decide how you're going to operate then. Now, I didn't think in terms of feeling, I thought in terms of operate. How would I conduct myself if I was successful with weight loss? And I started realizing one of the things I was putting on the other side of weight loss, and I've been doing it for a long time, was satisfaction, confidence, self-love, self-acceptance, self-worth issues. I was putting those on the other side of weight loss victory, losing all the weight. And I decided on this journey that whatever I'm going to feel on the other end, I'm going to go ahead and feel it now. I'm done waiting. I'm sick and tired of waiting. I'm 34 years old and I've been waiting to feel good. I'm done waiting. I'm done waiting to cross lines that I draw in the sand to say, when I cross that line, now I'll give myself permission to feel good. I'm just going to go ahead and choose to feel good now. And if somebody has a problem with it, you can kindly fuck off out of my life. I really just started having that switch. I've talked about this recently with several people because some people have asked me, where did that come from? And I shared this in a recent podcast episode several weeks ago, maybe a month or two ago, where for me, right after my dad died, there were some switches that flipped in my head with regards to how I see the world. And it just switched. It was sort of like a traumatic event caused changes. And one of the switches that happened in me is I suddenly really began to not care as much what people think about me. Like pretty rapidly, pretty suddenly, and pretty broadly. Right away, I realized, I'm like, you know what? I'm done living my life for other people when I'm not getting to live my life how I want to. I want to live my life according to my terms in a way that doesn't restrict anybody else's ability to live their life in their terms. So I just want to be me. So in my case, if that means I want to go on dates with guys or girls, then I want to be able to do that. I don't have to explain myself to anybody. I'm done explaining myself to people. So I stopped. And this part, though, imagine how you would feel if you succeeded. I started thinking, well, I'm going to feel confident on the other side of it. Well, let's go ahead and start feeling confident now. I figured on the other side of it, I'm going to feel love towards my body. Well, let's go ahead and start feeling love towards my body now. On the other side of it, I'm going to feel like dressing in good clothes. Well, let's go ahead and feel like dressing in them now. On the other side, I'm going to feel like exercising my body. Well, let's go ahead and feel like that now. Like whatever I thought I was going to feel on the other side, let's just go ahead and start doing it now. Thoughts and feelings go together, the book says here. Feelings are the soil that thoughts and ideas grow in. And so when you have these feelings, imagine how much easier weight loss would be if you were walking around every day feeling confident, feeling self-assured, feeling like you love the kind of person you are now and the kind of person you're becoming as well, loving how you look in the mirror because you bought some clothes that you think look good, and fuck all to anybody else's opinion, you think they look good. And people that are jerks or punks in your life, you stop talking to them because why do you need their influence? We don't need their stinking thinking in life. If you were just to start walking around with all those feelings you're hoping you're going to feel on the other side of the journey, feeling like working out, feeling like taking care of your mind and your heart, feeling like sleeping, if you started feeling all that way now, how much easier would your weight loss journey be? I'm willing to bet it'd feel a lot easier at that point. So my advice to you in that regard then would be, start working on feeling those feelings now. It may take time, right? You may not feel like exercising right now, but you can set that as the goal. Be like, I would like to achieve the goal of feeling like exercise even when I don't want to. Okay, I have set that goal. What does it take to achieve that goal? Well, the best thing I would know to do would then first to be to find people that already have what I want so I can go model them, because I don't even know what it is I don't know. So I need to go talk to them so they can fill in my blind spots for me. So let's go find people that have had exercise habits for a long period of time. What is my biggest fear in this hypothetical situation? I usually don't go when life gets crazy busy. My job sometimes gets busy, we'll say. So I not only need to find someone who works out, I need to find someone who works out that also has a crazy busy job and they've somehow managed to figure out how to do it. And then I need to sit down with that person and ask them a bunch of questions. And to go, what do you do when life is making it really hard to work out? And I'll get their answers on what they do. And it'd be best if I could find 2 or 3 people like this so I can get a bunch of answers, look at all the answers and decide, how do I want to implement this into my life? And from there, I can begin going, okay, it seems like one of the commonalities among those that exercise regularly, even when they don't want to, is they exercise regularly. And there seems to be this repetition thing. They none of them miss. And they even talked about how they don't have motivation as a reason to go. They have other workouts they do. Like if they don't feel like going, they go do a workout that is definitely less effective, but is fun because it's still better than no workout. And then this other person I talked to, he said a half-ass workout done half the time is better than 100%ing no workout. And I thought, well, that's really interesting to hear it that way. And another guy said 50% of a half-assed workout is still better than nothing. I'm like, well, that's an interesting way to think of it. And so, yeah, I have the goal of acquiring the mindset of wanting to work out even when I don't want to. I guess I need to go model them, and then I'm going to go now mimic their actions, which is they go and they've given me their philosophies, and I will practice. And so that way, when life throws a challenge, I can go, okay, how do my models handle this situation? Not how do I handle this situation, because every time I handle this situation, I fuck it up. How do my models handle it? And let me just try one of their solutions or cobble together an idea, a Frankenstein idea, based off of their solutions. You have to set the goal. The goal is what dictates what is right and wrong. The goal dictates whether your self-image needs to be updated or not. Your self-image might be just fine, but it also might not be. Because if you have a goal to be smaller in a healthy, thin, in-shape body, and you're currently in a 350-pound out-of-shape, overweight body, well, you need to check your self-image. Is your self-image more in alignment with the overweight body, or is your self-image more in alignment with the thin body? If your self-image is more in alignment with the overweight body, you need to doubt your intuition. You need to doubt your gut. You need to go talk to other people and trust their gut. Ask them, what do you do in these kinds of situations? Find their answers. And that way, when you're presented with certain types of situations, you can follow their advice and not yours. Because remember, if you knew how to lose weight and keep it off, you would have done it by now. Because I know the fact that you haven't got this done has not been from a lack of effort. I know that you have been trying. I know that you learned a lot. But I also know you might not yet have figured out what it is you need to achieve that lasting success. So don't give up. Don't give up. Keep searching. It is normal for this journey to take many years for many people. I often tell people when they're first starting a weight loss journey, I have the wonderful privilege of regularly welcoming people to their weight loss journey. And one of the things I tell them all at the onset is, however long you think this is going to take, it is going to take probably way longer. I would not be surprised if it was double. And also remember, there's no finish line. I know you might think there's a finish line where you get to go back to the life that you lived before. No, we're living forward. We're moving forward. Consider this for a moment. The way we lived our life in the 90s will never come back. It's impossible. That's what this needs to be. The way you lived your life when you were fat needs to never come back, and you need to have a new life. And that is going to be challenging because it is going to mean you're going to actually need to disrupt your life in some way. And I know how hard that can be, but I also know that it's worth it. Because when you take your life and you transform it into exactly what you want it to be, it makes the rest of your life a lot easier to live. And when your life is how you want it to be, it makes it a lot easier to not emotionally eat. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode, enjoyed digging into this book, Psycho-Cybernetics. This was literally, we covered 1.5 pages. Or 2 pages, I think. So this is how I like to deep dive into books. I love to really take a couple of pages, I'll read them, and then I might take the entire day, maybe even a week, and think on those 2 pages, and I'll go read some other book. And then I'll come back and read it another couple pages. That's why Psycho-Cybernetics took me like 1.5 years this last time to read it, and why The Power of Now, I'm 2 years into it, and I still haven't finished it. Because I'm taking it a page at a time or a paragraph at a time. I mean, what's the rush? On the other side of that book is just another book. So I'm not going to learn anything by reading from all the books. I will, however, learn something by doing what is in the books. And if I slow down long enough, I might actually give myself a chance to practice what is in the books as I'm reading the books. And maybe I'll acquire the skills that the books teach, which is really what I'm after. Have a great day, champion. I'll see you next week here on the Chris Terrell Podcast.